We're going to learn how to edit in Jumag. So here we start with the cover of the eCatalog, and we want to edit contents on this page, and so we click on the edit button, and now we're in the editor, and we'll look at how we edit various elements. So we'll start from working with text, and so here we have actual text. This of course is just the logo as a graphic image, but to edit text we have to be in the text mode, but you have to be careful how you get in the text mode to edit. If you click on this tool, then the application thinks that you want to create text, and so the safer way to do it is start with the selection tool, double click on the text, and now you can have a cursor, and now you can edit the text. In editing text, it's of course more than just editing the letters that you see on the screen. We have other issues. I'm going to undo this. Other issues like how different letters interact with each other and different lines interact with each other. So we'll work with this text box. We'll click into here, and now let's change the font. So we'll select the text, as much of it as you want to or as little, and change the font. And to do that, we come up here, and this is where the fonts are located in this application. And so it's as simple as changing to what you see selected. Of course, be very careful from the perspective of harming readability. This font may look fancy, but definitely this font on a very detailed background will decrease your readability, so you'd want to avoid something like this. If a font looks pretty to you, that's probably a reason to avoid it, because readability should be your greatest concern, not how pretty a font is. Be very wary of this issue. And so in readability, the things you look for, especially when it's compared to the background being busy, is how thick the font may be, and that has to do also with what the purpose of the text is. If the text has a prominent feature to draw attention to a specific message or a function that you wish to convey, then you'll want to go with a thicker font. If it's something more diminutive and something that is supportive but more of an afterthought, then you can go with something smaller and thinner. For example, here we have Spring 2017. It's small and thin on a textured background. The reason is it's not supposed to be prominent, but it's more of a differentiator, so that as we look at different covers of your eCatalog, we can know which period each one is from. And so we can afford for it to be less prominent and get the readability to be down, but the information to be presented. So back to our multi-line text. We select the text, and here's how you increase, or here's how you edit the size of the text. And of course, this also can happen for an individual line for whatever you have selected. Now let's say you have a situation where the text is different sizes and you want them to be the same, and so we'll select them together, and we'll just come here and we'll choose the size we want it to be. Now it's too small, so we'll make it larger. And we have this way of being able to increase the spacing between the lines. And then we have this for the space between the letters. You can also change the color of the text by coming here. Now, like choosing fonts that are attractive, be very, very cautious about choosing colors of text that you like. Selecting fonts and colors should be for the function of readability. And so, colors that may seem very appealing to you may actually decrease readability. In working with text and determining readability, I advise that you use the target demographic of older people as your guide. So as people get older, their eyes work less and reading becomes more difficult. And if you use this as the guide of making sure older people can read your text, then everyone can read your text. So this is why we don't do things like this. Nice bright yellow text which may really hit you in your sweet spot, but truly can be a terror. Another example is white text on a red background where the text is thin, very difficult to read. Avoid these things that may excite you. If it excites you, go the other way. And so we set it to black, and it's very readable. Next, we will look at how you edit an image. Now, editing is not very extensive in this environment because this, for example, is not a Photoshop type environment, even though the tools may look similar. So what this means is we won't be able to do things like erasing elements of an image in here. We would do that in Photoshop and bring it in here. What we can do, however, is let's, for example, select this background image. And we select this background image, and even with the selection icon, the selection tool, notice we can't move this image. It can't be selected. The reason is for protecting this design, the background has been locked. And so if you wish to unlock a background or unlock an object, you go to the layers, and here in this case we see that we have a layer called background. Now, just because it's called background doesn't make it magical or special. It literally is just another layer that is called background. And this is like Photoshop, where you can have objects in layers and they can be operated on independently. And because the background image is in a layer called background, we can turn the background off and see the design without the background. Now it's locked. We can't move it because this lock is set. Now we uncheck that, and now we can move the background around. And you can see how that could be troublesome if you're trying to select something and you're getting the background and it's all getting away from you. And so that's why the way this is designed is the background layer was selected, and then the image was added to the background and positioned, and then it was locked. So to show you what kind of editing we could do on an image, we unlock that background, we select the background image, and you have these handles. And the way these handles work is that they crop. And so we could come to here, and where this comes handy is two places. In this case, what this shows you when we crop like this is what will really be seen when we look at the magazine, the catalog cover. And so if, for example, we were to save this work, we could see that's in the place that we crop to. It also matches the size and shape of the cover. We're not going to be able to adjust the cover shape or size in the editor. And so when we select the background and we crop it, it gives us a good representation. The other reason this can be helpful in some of your work is that when you're inside the catalog and you have two pages, cropping like this for the background on one page can give you a realistic sense of where the edges of the pages are. Now, in the case where you don't crop it the way we had it by default, what this tells you is if you wanted to move the background image, this would give you a sense of what what information you still have left. So for example, we could do this, and now we know that we have information that we can use on the cover that may be different than we initially had. I'm going to undo those. Here's the undo icon. Other edits you can do to an image are found up here. So for example, we can adjust the cropping width, and here we can adjust the actual size, the percentage of size. This stretches it. This does not crop it. These do not work in a locked way, so you have to actually do them independently if you want to maintain the aspect ratio. And here you can move the image. You can also rotate. You can skew it. And here you can give it a border, and you can define the border type. This is a little thick, so we're not really seeing it. Now let's say you really get away from yourself. You've created something hideous and you want to hide your big secret. So you cancel and don't save. And then you can go back to edit and it's all good. Now in editing the image, another thing you may want to do is to simply change the image to another image. And so the easiest way to do that is to double click on the image and it takes you to the library. The library is where all of the images are stored, or where you can add more images. And let's go to this folder. And by the way, folders, make folders that segregate your content into categories that are obvious and make sense. This is especially true if you're working in a team. You don't want to be that person that just loads in all kinds of images into one folder and then no one has any idea where things are located. That person is not loved. And so we will find an image to replace the background image with, and I'm going to choose this image just because of how large it is, and then we click change image. And so now we've actually replaced the background with another image. Of course, if we chose a much smaller image, we would simply instantly lack coverage on the background. Now we will look at how we edit the slideshow images. These are special case images, and so we have an existing slideshow. We can actually click on the pencil icon, and then we can see what images make up that slideshow. And so these are the images that make up the slideshow. We could simply change those images or add other images, or select an image or each image and give it a title. That title would then show up as the slideshow flips through the slides. Instead, what we're going to do, we're going to create a slideshow image from scratch. So to do that, we will come to this tool, and they call the gallery tool. They should just say slideshow to be consistent, but it's them. And so now when we click that icon, we get a crosshair cursor. So let's create a slideshow object over here. And you have to be mindful of the kind of content you intend to put into the slideshow and make a slideshow of that shape. So I'm going to make it this shape because we're going to bring in some products. And now we have a slideshow, but it's empty. So again, we click on the pencil and no images added yet. So let's add photo or photos. And what we're going to do is we'll work with these 4 images right here. And so we'll select the first one, hold shift, select the rest, and we'll say add, and then we'll say OK. Now we have a slideshow object, and I'm going to point out a few things about it. First is, when we select the object and we go to object properties for any object is this icon, this tool, and we click that. The main thing that you should know is that this is what determines how fast the slideshow changes. So if you set it to 5, it'll change slower. We'll leave it at 3 because it gives us enough feedback as we're working. Now, depending on what the content is in a slideshow you make, you may want it to last longer because people may need to read something that's in there or really observe details. You'll have to make this decision based on why you are making the slideshow. Also, if it's a very large slideshow image, you'll want to slow it down so that the screen refresh will not have errors. So let's go back into our slideshow because there's something that's happening here that's not the best idea. The file name of every image is showing up. This is superfluous and it's confusing for someone who doesn't know what the file names are for. So let's go back and edit that by clicking on the pencil. And we click on each one of these images, and in the title we just delete those. And now we just have the images. If you want to resize your slideshow image, you can drag the handles. I'm holding the shift key down, so it's forcing it to maintain the aspect ratio so it doesn't distort it. And like any object, you can just drag it around and place it anywhere on the page. Images that you bring into the editor can be JPEG or they can be PNG. The main reason to choose JPEG or PNG is that the JPEGs can actually take up less space and load faster. However, the PNGs can give you transparency. So the logo, for example, is a PNG, and so its transparency makes it possible to make really cool looking layouts. All of the images in this slideshow are also PNG, and so you don't have a background coming in with each one. Depending on what your goal is, you may want them not to be PNG and to be JPEG, and JPEG has no transparency. PNG can have transparency, JPEG cannot have transparency. If you wish to add a new image and the image is in your gallery or the image is not in your gallery, you would start by going to the image tool, the photo tool, and you click photo tool and then you will either choose the image you want to work with from a folder that exists, or you will want to upload that from your computer. Once you have selected the image, you then click Place. Note that you must be sure that the image is selected, or Place will not be available to be clicked. It'll be ghosted. So right now you can see Place, but you can't put the image into the layout. So you click the image and then you click Place. And then you have the crosshair cursor, and you must hold the left button down and drag to place the image. Now it's an editable part of your page.